Buongiorno a tutti e a tutte, mi presento, sono Alessandro Tolomelli e insegno pedagogia generale e sociale e della devianza qui al Dipartimento di Scienze dell'Educazione e da molti anni mi occupo di teatro dell'Oppresso, come alcuni di voi sanno. E benvenuti e benvenute anche a nome della coordinatrice della nostra scuola di dottorato in scienze pedagogiche, la professoressa Elena Luppi, che stamattina non può essere qui con noi, ma mi ha chiesto di salutarvi e di salutare anche il nostro ospite Julian Boal, che è qui accanto a me, e che oggi sarà il nostro conduttore e speaker del seminario. Prima però di concedergli e di dargli la parola, una questione burocratica. Come avete visto all'ingresso ci sono dei cartelli che dichiarano e informano tutti voi che il seminario di oggi è registrato e sarà utilizzato nei canali dell'università per la diffusione. Quindi chi intende intervenire nel dibattito ovviamente è molto benvenuto e benvenuta. Però poi ci dovrebbe lasciare la liberatoria per l'utilizzo delle immagini audiovisive. Chi non desidera essere registrato né in audio né in video, non c'è problema, me lo segnala e quindi poi in fase di post-produzione la sua voce e la sua immagine non verrà utilizzata e diffusa in nessun modo. E l'altra cosa che devo dire, prima di dare la parola a Julian, è che il seminario di oggi è inserito all'interno di una visita più ampia che vedrà impegnato Julian anche oggi pomeriggio e domani in un workshop che è organizzato insieme al gruppo Crila dell'associazione Oltre, di cui anch'io faccio parte e che ringrazio molto per l'impegno e l'organizzazione, e soprattutto Ilaria Paradiso, che fa parte anche del dottorato, che è seduta lì in prima fila, non capisco perché non sia qui di fianco a me, e comunque che si è impegnata moltissimo e quindi veramente la ringrazio molto, anzi inizierei subito con un applauso a lei per aver reso possibile questo seminario, perché vi garantisco che, come molti dottorandi qui sanno, senza l'impegno e come dire, la devozione che ci mettete a organizzare eventi come questi, noi non riusciremmo a fare cose così belle come quella di oggi, quindi grazie davvero Ilaria. Abbiamo qui con noi appunto Julian Boal, che diciamo non ha bisogno di presentazioni, però dico solo due parole per introdurlo. Julian è un attivista, un regista, uno studioso di teatro dell'Oppresso, soprattutto recentemente si è molto focalizzato sulle dinamiche politiche, le intersezioni che questa metodologia ha con questioni legate ai momenti e ai contesti storici molto delicati che stiamo vivendo, nei quali la questione politica e di un approccio marxista alle questioni sociali contemporanee viene spesso lasciato in retroguardia e non applicato. Invece è molto interessante il lavoro che sta facendo lui proprio per, diciamo così, rinnovare la vocazione politica della metodologia fondata da suo padre Augusto Boal. In particolare segnalo che lui, insieme ad altri colleghi e colleghe, ha fondato la Escola di Teatro Popular ETP a Rio di Janeiro, che appunto lavora su questi temi, intrecciando arte e politica, ed è autore anche di un libro uscito di recente che si chiama Theatre of the Oppressed and Its Time, del 2023, che appunto espone le sue terrorizzazioni e intreccia il suo pensiero con le pratiche che ha sviluppato in questi ultimi anni. Lui parlerà in inglese, come sapete, il seminario di oggi è in inglese. Se per le domande e per il momento del dibattito c'è bisogno di un aiuto, voi potete parlare in italiano e io e Ilaria cercheremo di aiutarlo con la comprensione, traducendo alla belle meglio, perché non siamo traduttori professionisti, in inglese. Julian.
Yeah. Bueno, non parlo niente di italiano, mi piacerebbe moltissimo fare tutta la conversazione in italiano, però non è possibile per me. Entonces, perdone per questo. And now switching to English. I have many problems when I talk in English. One of them is that it's not my first language, so my English also is not perfect. Another problem is that when I am stanco, when I'm tired, and I'm extremely tired, by the way, I had a terrible night because yesterday some people tried to get me drunk. They did not succeed, but they tried very hard. No, it's not because of that, but I didn't sleep very properly. Anyway, but it's not their fault. But I have a tendency to mumble. So please, whenever I mumble, remember that that you remember me, that I'm mumbling, and make me a sign, or make me stop, and I'm more than willing and ready to stop at any time and to repeat. And also, I hate microphones, so I'm going to put a little bit far away. Is that okay, the sound? You can hear everything? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's start. So I don't know how many of you have read the books of my father, Augusto Boal. But I don't know if you noticed, for those of you that read it, that many of my father's books starts with his defeats, with the fact that he was not able to solve a certain problem, to continue on doing what he was doing, and then he had to reinvent another way of practicing. So that's a very common feature within the books of my father. He starts with his defeat. And by the way, this is a tradition that comes all the way with Erwin Piscator. Erwin Piscator, the author of Das Political Theater, The Political Theater. The whole book is an amazing book, is a fantastic book. Is always a book that starts about his defeats, and then he tries to do another thing, and then he tries to do another thing. It's a beautiful book. And why I'm telling you this? Because also, for me, I started with the defeats. But it was not the defeat of the former political theater. It was the defeat of theater of the oppressed itself. It was starting of the evidence for me that theater of the oppressed was not fulfilling the aims that my father gave to it at the moment it was conceiving it. One of the most famous quotations of my father, of Augusto Boal, is theater of the oppressed, well, actually, forum theater is a rehearsal for revolution. Now, theater of the oppressed exists, it's been almost 50 years, and that's the longest rehearsal ever, until now, with no revolution on site. Theater of the oppressed was invented in order to dismantle the monopoly of speech by saying, another famous quotation of my dad, that everybody can do theater, even the actors. So it was an attempt to dismantle the monopoly of speech exercised by the actors, but not only by them, also by whoever kind of specialist. So it was a device created in order to fight against the monopoly of speech. And now look at what we have. We have so many experts in theater of the oppressed. And among them, there is me. I am one of the experts in theater of the oppressed. So in many, many reasons, in many, many ways, you can see that what my father tried to do didn't succeed. And maybe it's more evident than ever when we speak about the performance themselves. I don't remember if you were there, but 14 years ago now, in Austria, there was you were there? No, you were, but you know the story. I tell the story. But Roberto was there. Roberto Mazzini was there. So you can prove me wrong if you disagree with me. So there was this meeting. It was 6 months after the death of my father. It was the largest theater of the press meeting ever in Europe, with groups from all the continents that you can imagine, except from the African continent, but there were representative of groups from the African continent. Is it clear what I'm saying? Yeah, so now it's clear, right? My English is good enough, right? So there was group from Singapore, there was group from Armenia, there were group from all over. And at a certain point, the group that was hosting the event makes a play, shows the play of them. And it was terrible. It was horror on earth. Why it was horror on earth? Because the play was very simple. It was a play about domestic violence. In the play, you could see a woman, a donna, preparing the food. You would see the husband waiting for the food. The woman arrives with the food. And at the very moment that the husband is going to start to eat, her cell phone starts to ring. Clear to now? The husband gets upset with that, get more and more upset. He stands up and beats the woman, right? End of the play. Let's start with the interventions. And how were the interventions? First woman that came on stage, what did? She took her cell phone off. She took her cell phone off, the cell phone didn't ring, and the problem of domestic violence was solved. The second woman to come, she came on stage, and she said to the husband, don't be so nervous, don't get angry, I prepare your favorite dish. Let's dim a little bit the light, let's put some romantic music in the air. I don't know what romantic music is in Italy. In many places it would be, I don't know, what's his name? I forgot his name, I'm sorry. But here it would be Adriano Celentano or something like this. Yeah, okay, so I know some Italian actually. Let's put some romantic music and let's see where the night is going to lead us. Let's see what's going to happen. And basically, as I understood, and many people understood, she was trading sex for safety. The last woman to come on stage, she said, I'm noticing that you're a little bit nervous. I will take a walk in half an hour. I'm coming back and let's talk when you're more calm. And at this moment, the person that was furious was me on the audience. But not only me, something like 10 people were absolutely upset with what was happening. And why we were so upset? We were so upset, I hope that you know by now, we were so upset because what we were saying on stage was not something that was against patriarchy, it was not something that was against domestic violence. On the very contrary, it was something that was supporting the violence and supporting patriarchy. And why so? Because they were doing on stage the exact same thing that the dominant speech of society says outside of the stage. Yes, the husband is violent, but at the same time, you don't know how to talk with your husband. But at the same time, you don't prepare the favorite dish. Yes, but at the same time, you don't prepare quality time with your husband. So therefore, it's kind of normal, the violence that you receive. Is it clear what I'm saying? Yeah? Is it clear?
Sta mambolando?
I am mumbling. No? Puoi intentare parlare in italiano, però non va a essere una cosa buona. No. But if you prefer, I can switch to Itagnol.
I think it's good in English. I think you can explain better the point, but still in English.
Okay, still in English. The fact is that, so they were reproducing patriarchy, they were reproducing the speech that supports domestic violence by using forum theater. I was extremely upset, and then I left the room after going to every actor saying, look, it's not a personal problem, it's a political problem. I don't believe that you can portray domestic violence, that you can portray patriarchy this way, and then I left. And it was a very good thing that I left, because the play that came just after was a play from Canada that was about rape. This play had as a name Mixed Message, which I believe that we can all agree that's a terrible title for a play about rape. And how was the play? There was a woman, there was a man, and the man offered to the woman on the first day a coffee. She goes, no, my stomach's a little bit upset, I cannot drink coffee after 5, otherwise I don't sleep. The guy insists. She finally takes a sip, and it's delicious. How stupid was I to have refused in the first place? The second day, the guy offers a beer. He offers a beer, and she goes, no, yesterday I drank too much. I don't want to drink. I'm going to drive right now. I don't want to get caught in that terrible law that you have in Italy right now. So I don't want to have a drink. No, it's not possible. The guy insists. She finally takes a sip and goes like, it's delicious. I was so stupid to have refused in the first place. You understand where I'm going? The last day, the guy offers sex, and as she trained him in first refusing, then liking it, he kept on insisting. He rapes her, and at the end of the day, who is to be blamed for the rape? The woman. Those plays...
Avete capito?
Avete capito? Those plays were doing exactly what the dominant speech of society is doing. I don't know if you had here in Italy something called the slut walk. There were slut walks all over the world. It started in Canada because a police officer that was invited to go to a university to talk against rape, he said, what would really help against rape is women stop wearing slut clothes, clothes like slut. So that is the speech that is dominant in our society like this, and this speech was reproduced by a forum theater. So the next question is why? And there is different hypotheses that one can bring. The first hypothesis, it would be the easier one, is that look at those people, they are stupid, they didn't read well the books, they are doing wrong TO, and that's it. You just need to learn TO in the proper way. It's a terrible answer for me. It's a terrible answer for me. Because it says that TO is absolutely perfect and the people fail to understand something that is perfect in itself. So what's the solution? Is that all of you that did not understand the proper theater of the press, you needed to pay workshops with me. And as soon as you have paid those workshops with me, you are going to do an amazing work. And it's not that easy. The second solution would be that the groups, the groups have no problem. What is problematic is theater of the press in itself. For me, it's a terrible solution because of obvious reasons. No, I go to a psychoanalyst, okay, but still, I think that it wouldn't be that easy to say that condemn theater of the press as a whole and to say that's a terrible thing. And even if it was the case, that could not be a good solution because of political reasons. There is so many people out there that are doing theater of the press that we need to try ways to address them. To talk with them, to construct with them. So to say that theater of the press should be put in a garbage can and you leave it away, how do you do it with the world that the theater of the press has created? How do you interact with this world? And also, si è capito? Si è capito?
Tu Simone che sei un madrelingua inglese puoi aiutarci forse.
Si capisce bene?
Dite ok, siate sinceri.
Sì.
Ok.
So that would be the second option. And also, this second hypothesis doesn't explain why people do think that those practices that I've just told about, that individualize the oppression, that says that you alone can solve the oppression, those things are interesting for them. Why? That doesn't answer anything of this. So I had to study, and I came up with a different hypothesis, which is the following thing. I believe that the problem of theater of the press nowadays is that theater of the press was based on the creation of theatrical techniques that were the theatricalization, let's put it this way, of emancipatory hypotheses of the left, emancipatory hypotheses that somehow got realized by the system in which we live. Got somehow realized. So those bets from the left, those communist bets, are already realized in our society, but in a pervert manner. In a manner that is absolutely not emancipatory. This one is more difficult, so I'm going to come back a little bit more. I'm going to develop a little bit more. So one of the hypotheses, emancipatory hypothesis of the left was, and this is Marxist as shit, Marxian as shit, is the abolition of the social division of labor. Do you know what is social division of labor? So for those that don't know, let's put it this way. Okay, so in many different countries, including France, where I lived for a very long time, on the 1st of May, you have marches. I guess that here you have marches on 1st of May too, yes, right? Yeah. In France, in Paris, it's amazing because you have groups from all over the world that are present in those marches. And you have one specific group that is the Kurdish Communist Party, which I believe must be extremely Stalinist party. They have a banner that they show every year that is very funny for me, to say the least, because he's a worker with, very strong, the belly is very well defined. He have a mustache very big like this, he's very macho, and he's raised his hand to the air, and he have shackles, and he destroy the shackles. On one hand, you have an hammer, and on the other hand, he doesn't have the cycle, he doesn't have this. He have something, another more industrialist tool, right? And he destroys that. What is the idea behind this banner? The idea behind this banner is that one day the workers will be able to destroy the slavery of the capitalist regime under them, and they will produce freely, but they will produce exactly as before, since the hammer and the other two. The production will not change. What will change is who owns the factory. This is absolutely not Marxist. This is the contrary of Marxism. Why is it so? When Marx and Engels, they look at the past to imagine what mankind will be in a communist future, they look and they have one example that they always give, and it's Leonardo da Vinci. And I'm not saying that because I'm in Italy. It's true. And why do they look at Leonardo da Vinci as an example for the future? Because Leonardo da Vinci used to draw, he used to paint, he used to be an inventor, he used to be an architect, he would write some poetry, he would engage in the political debates of the time, so it would have several manners to make in such a way that his subjectivity comes out as an objectivity, comes out in material object. His subjectivity becomes a material object. What happened with the social division of labor, according to Marx and Engels, is precisely the contrary. Because we need to do a certain work in order to have money, in order to have currency, in order to be able to buy the things that we need for our lives, we, by having only a certain work, we reduce to the maximum the way that we relate to reality, to the point that it's the reality that becomes our subjectivity. Is it clear what I'm saying? It's a little bit like Charlie Chaplin. You know Charlie Chaplin? Yeah? Charlie Chaplin doing this in the modern times.
Tempi moderni.
Tempo moderni, that he's on the line and doing the same gesture all the time, till the moment that when he sees a donna that is dressed up with those things, he goes there and he's going to try to take away this. He's going to see a fire hydrant and he's going to open the fire hydrant because he can only see that in the world. And this is true for factory workers, obviously, but this is not true only for factory workers. All of you here, very likely, had the experience, the very bad experience, of going to a doctor and seeing that this doctor don't look at you, he only looks at the disease. Kids arrive at the doctor. The kids have, how you call it, not enough iron in his blood. What do you call it?
Anemia.
Anemia. You have anemia. The kids have anemia. The doctor will answer, you need 3 tablets of iron 3 times a day during 3 months, and that's it. Ciao, ci vediamo in 3 mesi. He doesn't ask to the kid, what do you eat? Can you eat? What's the relationship to your parents? Nothing. He only sees the disease. He doesn't see the person as a whole. So this doctor that's highly educated also suffers from the same thing than the factory worker, the reduction of reality to the speciality for which he relates to reality. This is also true for politicians, according to Marx. According to Marx, during Marx times, it was the first time that the Workers' Party had members of parliament being elected. Deputato si dice. It was the first time ever that the workers' movement was arriving to have deputato. And at that time, what we would imagine, Marx very happy, champagne and stuff like this. No, he was pissed. He didn't like that at all. And they called them parliamentary cretins, cretino parlamentare, cretinos parlamentare. Cretino, in the time of Marx, was a medical term. It was not an insult, it was a medical term. A cretino is someone that, because of consanguinity, doesn't have a full development of his mental or physical capacity. Those persons that we elected to the parliament, because they're there in the parliament, they are people that have their capacity, intellectuals and physical, limited by the very fact that they're in the parliament, because they see the parliament as the only place of struggle, while the whole society should be a place of struggle. Is it clear what I'm saying? This is what my father is referring to when he says, everybody can do theater, even the actors. When he proposed the demechanization, the games of, he's referring to the social division of labor. Quite clearly, if you read the books. But he's doing that. Okay, but what about social division of labor today? How many of us, how many of you, can believe that they are going to do the whole same work during their whole life? That is not the experience of the majority of the people. You needed to, you are studying here, during certain years you are going to do jobs that have nothing to do with what you studied for, then maybe you are going to come back. The very academia is changing a lot all the time, and you cannot expect that you are going to have to do the same thing during the whole year. You have Uber here. Uber, the drivers? Uber.
There is not in Bologna,
but you know
what is it.
Yeah. Next time that you're going to take a Uber driver, ask them, do you only work as a Uber? And they will tell you, no, I'm a hairstylist, I'm a lawyer, I'm this, I'm that. Everybody needs to use all of their time in different manners in order to have enough money to end the needs of the month. Is it clear what I'm saying? So the sentence of Marx, that is in the German ideology, in a communist society, people will be shepherds in the morning, fishermen in the afternoon, to be intellectuals by night, is somehow realized, but in a pervert manner, in a non-emancipated society, and becomes not a source of emancipation, but on the very contrary, a deepening of our oppression. Is it clear what I'm saying?
Questo è un punto focale, avete capito?
Se ha capito?
Dite sì o no?
Se puoi dire che no. What I'm saying is that I will try it another time. Lo vuoi intentare in italiano? È così. Para Marx, la idea di una umanità emancipata passa necessariamente per la non specializzazione, perché in la specializzazione hai una, non voglio dire così, però mi italiano è molto malo, hai una amputazione de nuestras capacidades. Quando él está discutiendo con Stirner, che dice, mira la divisione... Guarda. Quando si disputa con Stirner in l'ideologia tedesca, quando discute con Stirner dice, mira, non habría potuto avere Michelangelo si no hubiera división social del laboro. Es un genio y él tiene que poder expresarse. Y Marx dice, pero tú cuando lo llama del pintore Michelangelo y dice que es un genio, está diciendo precisamente el contrario. Es una persona que solo sabe expresarse a través de un instrumento que es su... la pintura, la tecnica. El pennello. Solo sabe relazionarse con la realtà attraverso un pennello. Y dice, en una sociedad comunista no habrá más pintores, solo habrá gente che entre altre cose pintaranno. Si capisce? No, non si capisce. You try it.
Nella società comunista avrai persone che fanno i pittori insieme ad altre cose. Non c'è la specializzazione.
No volava la specializzazione perché in la specializzazione lo che él via era una forma che tan repetitiva de relacionarse al real que faría de tal modo con que la realidad se reduciría a esta forma. Y si queremos entender la realidad de una manera más compleja, tenemos que pasar por diferentes maneras de relacionarse con esta realidad. ¿Se ha capito ahora? In English, okay. So, okay. Yeah, so I'm going not to repeat it, but I'm going to bring that to Theatre of the Oppressed, okay? Theatre of the Oppressed tries to fight against the specialization, right? All the games that you can find it here are games that have one goal, the demechanization. But how good is demechanization in a society that constantly asks you to demechanize yourself in order to adapt yourself at the jobs market? Is it clear what I'm saying? We are in a society that is no longer like in Marcuse' book, phenomenal book, by the way, the unidimensional man.
L'uomo ha una dimensione.
L'uomo ha una dimensione. What they thought in the 70s that you are going to get a job and it's going to be the job that you're going to have for the rest of your life. This is not true for today's job market that constantly asks you to adapt and to change and to be a different thing. So how revolutionary is, how emancipatory is to demechanize when we are already in a society that asks us to do the same thing. Is it clear what I'm saying? I'm going to make maybe una parentesi per parlare di altre forme di fare teatro in cui hai algo simile che succede. Il teatro brechtiano. Sapere del teatro brechtiano algo? Che vuole il teatro brechtiano? Che vuole? Il teatro brechtiano, in a nutshell, I'm going back to English, I'm sorry.
Stay in English. Stay in English.
That's so thoughtful of you. So, in the Brechtian theater, what happens? What do we have in Brechtian theater? We have the idea that, okay, I don't know how much you know about Brecht, so I'm going to explain, very bluntly. It's because of Brecht that nowadays we don't see a sun hiding a lightning. The light, We are going to not have the sun, we are going to see the light. We are not going to see the actors, the actress, leaving the stage in order to put some other clothes. They are going to do that in front of us. Why did Brecht did that? Why did Brecht do that? Because he wanted for people to understand that what was presented on stage was not reality, but a constructed reality. Constructed by the actors, constructed by those means of production. And then he wanted people to look after theater, at the street, at the working place, not as the reality, but as a reality, and try to uncover what was behind it, what was producing this reality. Is it clear? It's a very simplistic explanation, but I believe it's true. How does it work nowadays? I never saw news in Italian, but I'm quite sure that it works the same way than in so many different places. You go to see the news. What do you see? You see one anchor, one journalist here, and behind him you see 30 journalists working. When it's election night, he's going to say, now we are going to Roma to have our special newspaper envoyé being there at Roma, telling us about what's happening in Roma right now. We have our special envoyé in Ukraine telling us how's the situation in Ukraine right now. They are showing us all the time the means of production, all the time. And this is not a way to critique what was said, to show our reality, to show nowadays the means of production is something that help out to create an embasement, to create a legitimacy of the speech that is being said on the newspaper. You understand what I'm saying? It's precisely because they spend so much money in order to do it that we believe that's the truth. We don't critique because we see the means of production. On the contrary, we legitimate because we see the means of production. Have you seen Avatar? Avatar, the movie Avatar? Have you seen it? I don't know about you. I don't go to see Avatar because of the story. The story is terrible. The story is very shitty. You go to see Avatar because you never saw means of production like this on stage, on the screen. You go there because of the means of productions. When there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, something called DVD, you remember DVDs? One of the things that you had in DVDs was those extras in which you would see the means of production. The means of production are part of the show, are part of the enchantment of the film. When you, I don't know, it happens in so many different places.
Even during the COVID, we have the library.
The library behind it, yeah.
Yeah, so you
I was thinking about, I don't know if you saw that, and if you didn't see, you should see, there is this amazing actor called Benedict Cumberbatch. He plays like a dragon. Yeah, you saw that. He's amazing. But then people goes to see the means of production. To display the means of production is no longer a critique of what was produced, is on contrary something that adds values to something that was produced. So if we want to do Brecht today, we cannot repeat Brecht as Brecht was. To believe that by repeating the Brechtian techniques, we are going to have Brechtian plays is a fallacy, it's a lie. In Brazil, we have a lot of groups that are inspired by Brecht. And some of them believe that there is something as a Brechtometer. Brechtometer? You talk directly to the audience, 5 points. There's a projection, 10 points. There is a showing the means of production, 6 points. And at the end, you add all the points, and you have a very good Brechtian play. Brechtometro. It doesn't work this way. It simply doesn't work this way. Just another one. What's his name? John Gassner. No, it's not John Gassner. I forgot. I'm mixing it up. Whatever. I forgot his name. I will very likely remember that. So it was activist theater in the 70s in the US. That guy that I'm talking about, he would bring someone that looked like a Vietnamese, I don't know if he was a real Vietnamese, in the campus, the university campus of the US. And he would bring this guy with his hand tied and with a blindfold, would throw him at the feet of students and would give a gun to those students. Kill him. Why should I kill him? Because that's what you're doing already. How am I doing this? Are you paying your tax? Well, obviously. So you are helping to kill him because those tax, there is 25% of them that are going to Vietnamese war against the Vietnamese people. So don't be shy, be brave, no, don't be a coward and kill him. No, but I don't, what are you learning here? I'm learning to be an engineer. Do you know what an engineer are doing right now in Vietnam? They are building the bridge for the tanks to pass. So you are killing him, so please take the gun and shoot him. Imagine the violence that was provoking for those students watching this. And the guy that was doing it, which name will come back in a minute, why he was doing it? Because he felt that this violence was a need. It was a need that we had to introduce this violence in the life of those students because by being a student in the US, they were already somehow in the American way of life. They were sure that they were going to have a job, that they were going to have a house, a partner, kids, a dog, car, everything. And they were somehow under anesthesia because of this American way of life. And you needed to bring a lot of violence in those places to wake them up and for them to become good anti-imperialist activists. Is it clear? Nowadays, it's still very common to have violent performance. One of the most violent performers that I know of is Fura del Baus, that is in Catalonia. They even throw pig's blood to their audience.
Conoscete Fura del Baus? Noi abbiamo un esempio, non so se avete visto Bros di Romeo Castellucci, che è un teatro che si ispira alla Fura del Baus.
So it's very violent. But today, do you really think that violence is something that wakes up people? Or is it violence something so extraordinary? Even for those students in campus, you know that the first cause of death in the US is shootings for students, is shootings on the campus. Even if they are not shot at, they are going to try to sell the working strength in a job market that is more and more unstable, that is more and more chaotic, in order to try to repay their debts that they had because of the student loan, and they will have to pay that for 20 years of their life, 30 years of their life, in an economy that is absolutely chaotic. To introduce violence on stage, is that something that is extraordinary? Or on the contrary, we are helping them out by saying that violence is the rule everywhere. By proposing demechanization, are we trying to have people that have more layers to their being, that have more dimensions to their being? Or are we adapting the worker class for the constant readaptation they will need to have in order to try to fit in a job market? Is it clear what I'm saying? One last point. There was many bets inside Theatre of the Press. There was the bet in the self-emancipation of the oppressed. The working class, the emancipation of the working class will be the work of the working class itself, as said Marx. The bet that of the self-emancipation, that is at the very core of feminism, that is at the very core of that anti-racist struggle, that is at the very core of anti-capitalist struggle. Theatre of the Press. We don't need to have other people talking on our behalf. We are going to talk. The putting on stage of our oppression, we are going to take charge of it. So that's one of the bet. The end of art as a separated sphere of reality. That's also at the very core. It's something that you can find in the surrealist, but also you can find in Theatre of the Press in a different manner. And there is one last bet that I'm going to develop a little bit, is the hypothesis of the hero. Let's put it this way. Hypothesis of the hero. In Latin America, by that time, we had something that was very important for Latin Americans. It was the Cuban Revolution. And the Cuban Revolution, I don't know if you read some of the texts of Che Guevara, they put a lot of faith in the individual capacity to do whatever they can. There is text and text of Che Guevara, of Fidel Castro, saying, we were 12 and started the revolution. We were 12 and started the revolution. I love the number, 12. There was no Judah between us. Everyone was on it. So we were 12 and started the revolution. What is a forum theater, if not a place where you can stage your heroism? Just to be clear, my father was not only the inventor of Theatre of the Press, he was also someone that wrote no less than 4 plays in support of the armed struggle. He was also someone that, 4 plays in support of the armed struggle, but he was himself someone that was a member of an armed struggle organization, the armed struggle organization of Carlos Marighella. And in this organization that was called the National Liberation Alliance, there was a motto: the person that gives the first shot draws the people. The person that gives the first shot draws the people. Is it clear what I'm saying?
I think at this point you have to repeat a little bit because also I
The political organization of armed struggle that my father was a member of had a motto, had a slogan. And this slogan was, the one that gives the first shot will draw the people. What they were saying, we needed to show that we are radically against the dictatorship. Radically enough in order even to be violent against them. Rob bank, kidnap ambassador, kill generals and stuff like this. We need to show it. Because when we will show it that it's possible, many more people will look at it and will see if it's possible for them, it's possible for me too, and I'm going to do that. And the exemplarity of the heroism is going to draw the masses till the moment that more and more actions like this will occur in order to create the mass movement that is needed in order to fight against dictatorship. That was the idea. And that is the idea that is behind the Forum Theater. We are not going to show ourselves the good example. We are going to wait for the people to come on stage and to radically refuse the state of things as it exists in order to inspire trust, in order to inspire confidence in the other members of the audience that will say, if it's possible for him, it's possible for her, if it's possible here, it's also possible outside. And we are going to do it. And we are going to help create the mass movement that is needed in order to fight against dictatorship. That's the main idea that exists inside the Forum Theater. The problem is that we are 50 years later. The problem is that for us, the Cuban Revolution is no longer in our horizon. And maybe no revolution is on the horizon right now. Which makes that repeating this technique is going to create completely different meanings. And by completely different meanings, what do I mean? Today, when we refer to a hero, we are not having in mind Che Guevara. The person that is a hero today is a Uber driver. It's the person that is able to support, to endure how life is difficult, to work his ass off, and then coming the next day to do exactly the same, and the same, and the same. I had to study people that were working as food deliverers, food delivery. I had to study that in Brazil. And I went to YouTube, and there's thousands of videos of those food delivery workers that goes on that place in order to be able to survive, and that they record themselves while doing it, and they refer as themselves as warriors. And why are they warriors? Because they're able to endure the war that is the job market today. To endure, not to change it. To be capable of resisting to it, never being capable to change it, to transform it. The horizon of transformation is not present in those thousands of videos. The horizon is to be able to put your body out there, to be able to survive to the horrible condition of work, and coming the next day to do exactly the same. There is a text from a very important movement in Brazil, that's called the landless workers. And the landless workers. And in that text that was created by the cultural collective of the landless worker, they said culture is a very tricky thing, because with culture you can end up very easily doing the work of your enemy. Theater of the press nowadays, in so many cases, is doing for free the work of the enemy by not fighting against the dominant subjectivities that exist, but by reproducing them on stage. And so, theater of the press that was designed as a tool for the struggle became in itself a battlefield. Okay? So, if that's okay with you, what I would like to do next would try to have the positive side of all this negativity, of all this critique. By positive, I don't mean the solution, but an attempt to try to solve things, which is the organization that I belong to. I belong to la Scuola di Teatro Popolare, the Escola di Teatro Popular of Rio de Janeiro. And I would like to tell you the story of Escola di Teatro Popular for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then either we have a break, either we have questions. Is it clear? That's okay? You're good with that? And then there is back and forth. Clear? Okay, so... Intentare di parlare italiano? Sì? Ok. La Scuola di Teatro Popolare ha iniziato 7 anni fa. Ha iniziato perché il movimento dei lavoratori senza tierra mi hanno chiamato per essere il curator, il curatore, si dice, di una parte di un festival che hanno fatto, che era un festival sobre arte emancipatoria. E mi hanno preguntato se io potevo essere il curatore della parte sobre teatro dell'Oppresso. E mi hanno detto una cosa che nadie mi ha detto antes, e nessuno mi ha detto nessuno, e very likely nadie me lo va a dire poi. No?
Ok, facciamo una cosa perché con la lingua sennò ci facciamo più confusione che altro. You get back into English. Se qualcuno di voi ha bisogno della traduzione in italiano, magari possiamo chiedere a qualcuno di mettersi vicino e tradurre dall'inglese.
Okay? Hai intentato.
Sì, però siccome ci sono diverse esigenze, cerchiamo di combinare così, ok? Se hai bisogno della traduzione con l'inglese... Okay,
so,
let's get back in English.
Okay, and so this sentence that nobody told me before and nobody is going to tell me after was a very simple sentence. It was, don't worry about the money. You have as much money as you can. And, you know, so when you have as much money as you can, you start behaving very strangely, actually, you know. I started inviting all the groups that I wanted. I asked a group from India to come to Brazil. It's so fucking expensive. It's amazing expensive. Who cares? Don't worry about the money. I'm inviting them. But also, I start to invite people that I didn't even know because they told me, it's a very nice group. Okay, let's invite them. You know, I don't have to worry about the money. Let's invite them. It was in 2014. No, 2014. 2017. And I'm very glad that I was able to do that because I invited a group that was called by that time the Political Theater School. The Political Theater School was a school that belonged to a social movement in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, that is called La Dignità. And La Dignità have a way to organize themselves that is completely different from all the other ways that I saw previously of organizing. Mostly what we do when we are trying to organize is that we come up with a slogan, right to abortion, nessuno è illegale, and we try to create march in order to demand from the state that this slogan becomes a politics, a law in the state. That's not how work La Dignidad. La Dignidad, they work by creating cooperatives of workers that will somehow do tasks that are necessary in the slums in which they operate. And by that I mean that, for instance, they created a fire brigade because the state fire brigade have cars that are too narrow to enter into the streets of the slum. So they created a fire brigade that could go inside the slum. They created one ambulance in order to do precisely that, to enter into the streets. But they created pharmacy, they created health centers that I'm so pleased to say, that used to perform abortion even before abortion was legal in Argentina. They create schools, they create collective restaurants, they create structures to take the garbage out, to create gas with the garbage. They create a lot of different structures that allows them to create a kind of an ecosystem And by that I mean that if you, let's take as an example, that you are willing to put your kid in a school of La Dignità, what's going to pass if you put your kid in a school of La Dignità? Every 2 weeks, you needed to join the school in order to discuss the political pedagogical program of the school. But also, not only to discuss, but also you need to clean the space, you need to repair stuff, you need to prepare the food. So when you are inside a service of La Dignidad, it's not the they don't ask you to have the frenetic activity that you need to have in order to buy a commodity, by working, by selling your working strength in the job market. They don't ask you that. They don't ask you neither for you to have this passivity that you have most of the time when the state guarantees a right of yours. The state guarantees a school for your kids, and you go to the school twice a year, max. So it's neither, they invite you to join a project that is only going to be feasible if you join it. Okay, if you enter into it. And again, it creates an ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, it's that those kids that are learning things at La Dignidad, they might go also to health center. Health center, that if you go there to have a pill in order to not have babies, they are going to ask you, how is the relationship with your partner? And you might end up, because of this discussion, in the feminist circle of La Dignidad. Feminist circle of La Dignidad that might ask to the School of Political Theater to create a play on domestic violence. School of Theater that might give trainings to the fire brigade because the fire brigade says, we don't know how to talk to the people. And so they create squits for teaching those people how to talk with the inhabitants of the slum. Inhabitants of the slum that are going to be invited also to reconstruct the slum so more air can circulate in order to fight against tuberculosis. Is it clear what I'm saying? And they have so much legitimacy inside the slum that who give the name of the streets is La Dignidad. And when the town hall, when the mayor give names, either they put that under parenthesis or they strike it. And then they put the name of La Dignidad, because who gives the names in this territory is the people of the territory. Is La Dignidad, it's not going to be the mayor. I find it amazing. And they are able to gather, I've told you, a march of 100,000 militants of La Dignidad. It's fabulous.
And is it located in Buenos Aires?
It was, they split up. Yeah. Peronism, lefty peronism can be very harmful, but that's another question. So we were extremely impressed by that, and we wanted to reproduce the same thing within Rio de Janeiro, where we were at. The problem of Rio de Janeiro is that we don't have such a thing as La Dignidad. We don't have such a big social movement inside Rio de Janeiro. So what we decided is that we were not going to be the school of a movement that invite people that are not activists, but by joining the school, they will becoming the cultural branch of the La Dignidad, and therefore activists of La Dignidad. That could not be our modus operandi, our way of doing it. We had to discover another way of doing it. And what was this other way of doing it? It was to invite only activists from different social movements, from the different people's movement, to join in for the school. And that's what we did. And the first year, we worked, and we worked very nicely. Except that, we were doing this for the social movement, with the social movement, but a little bit against the social movement. Because in Brazil, we have a lot of social movements that do have somehow already, a practice in art, a practice in culture. And most of the time, I must say that I don't agree that much with this way of doing art, with the way that they have of doing art. And why is it so? Because they stress too much the heroism. I'm going to tell you a story because I believe it's going to be more clear if I tell the story. I had the opportunity to work with people from La Dignidad and other people from another social movement from Brazil, from Salvador in Brazil, from Bahia in Brazil, that's called the Ruthless Movement of Bahia. People Without Roof of Bahia, Senza Tetto. And we came together, and the activity that we had to do that day was very simple. It was the Argentinian group show their play, the Brazilian group show their play, we come together, we criticize our plays, and then together we try to recreate scenes that are going to overpass the problems that we saw in the previous scenes. Is it clear? Okay, so I need to stand up a little bit. Yeah. Sorry about that. The Brazilian theater group. Bahia is the blackest state of all Brazil. Roofless, people without roof. Basically what I'm telling you is that all of them were black. So they were black and they did a scene that would be very common for a social movement loaded of black people to do in Brazil. A play about the Brazilian genocide, because there is very likely something like 80,000 black people that are killed every single year in Brazil, 80,000 people, the vast majority of them being killed by the police. How is the scene? There is 3 teenagers at the front door of one of them. You're going to the party? No, I'm not going to the party, but you need to go to the party. Why should I go? You don't know who's going to the party. That person is going to the party. We really need to go. A neighbor shouts, police, police, police. They start running. One of them falls flat on the floor, killed by the police. Arrives the mother. The mother looks at the children, embraces the children for a second, and immediately stands up, doing this gesture, and starts declamating a poem that was like this. In Brazilian it rhymes, but sou mãe, não vou chorar, eu vou lutar. I'm a mother, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to struggle. And the poem goes on and on and on. Beautiful scene, but highly problematic for me. Look, what you've shown on stage is real for 5 to 10 mothers, maybe every year. This is the extremely minority of mothers that are able to do that, extremely minority of fathers that are able to do that. You are stressing the exception. Show us the rule. There is a 80,000 black kid that gets killed every day, every year. There might be 100 parents that stands up. The others, they don't like their kids. No, no, it's not about that, it's not about that. So tell me why they are not standing up. So they redo the scene. Now with Argentinians in the scene. The scene start the same. You should go to the party. Why should I go to the party? We was coming to the police, police. One falls flat. The mother comes. The mother takes the kid on her arms, but now she's crying. Arrives a figure that makes a struggle sign like this. The mother is not willing to go with that person. She opens her arms, 3 steps to the back. Arrives an Argentinian woman that happens to be white. She sees the body on the floor. She cries, she grabs the body, crying. She stands up, she goes to the black woman opens her arms, they hug each other, crying. They stay near to the other, looking at the body of the kid. At a certain point you can notice that the white woman is in distress. She needs to do something. She needs to say something. At that moment she turns to the black woman and she says, I'm very sorry. It's been 2 days that I have to stay at home because I cannot leave my kids. They told me at the work that I can no longer stay at home. I need to get back to work. Will you be able to go to my house and work tomorrow? The black woman look at the white woman with hate, look at her and says, yes, tomorrow I will be at your work. It's because she is a mother that she cannot be a mother. It's because she have other kids, she have other things to save, other people to save, other rents to pay, that she cannot mourn. We say in Brazil that for many of us, o luto é luxo. Mourning is a luxury. To mourn is a luxury.
Il lutto è un lusso.
Luto è un luxo. And that was the case for that woman. She could not mourn. She could not mourn. I prefer much more the second type of scene. The first type of scene stress the resilience, the heroism, the exception. The second type of scene puts a light on how the Brazilian society works, much more than in the first. The first is this, have the same morality that those micro-entrepreneurs that from every lemon they make a lemonade. What's important is to resist. The second one, stress how the Brazilian society is a horrible society as a whole. Is it clear? So we had much more negative aesthetics to bring to those activists, and we did, and we created beautiful scenes for the first year. But the second year starts with something that maybe some of them will know, some of you will know, the assassination of Marielle Franco. Marielle Franco was a councilwoman in Rio de Janeiro, and as a councilwoman, she was the fifth most voted council person, and she got assassinated the 14th of March of 2018. And it was a disaster for the whole Rio, and it was a disaster for the school too, for two reasons. One is that many of us made campaign for Marielle Franco. You can see a picture in which there was a lot of people that would become after activists of the Escola, of the school, packed in a car in which there are far too many to be in that car, with a huge miles going to distribute leaflets for Marielle that's inside the car. And the car belongs to the other founder of the school. But at the same time, so there was a personal link, but at the same time there was something that was not personal. It was the fear. If they can kill the fifth most voted council person of Rio, who they cannot kill? Everyone can be a target. Everyone can be killed. So we were extremely frightened, and we decided to make a step forward. What do we do? We decided to not be only a school for activists, but to become an activist school. So not to do only things between the four walls of the school, but to go on the streets. And how do we do that? We started 1 month after the killing of Marielle. There was a huge march that was called during the afternoon. We were calling in the morning people to join us to create scenes that were going to be presented in the march. More or less 40 people came. We created scenes, we showed those scenes inside the march, but also we went to every bar, to every square, to every place where there were people gathered in order to show certain scenes, in order to try to talk to the population in another manner that the march itself was going to talk about, in order to try to engage with the population in a different manner. And obviously there were people that were very upset at us, that didn't want to see us at all, and obviously also there were other people that supported us. But most importantly, we felt that it was very important for us to regain the trust that, as we say in Catalan, al carrer serán sempre nostra. The street will always be ours, to reclaim the street as ours. And so we did that. During the whole year, we went many more times to the street. We created political meetings. We created a festival. We created any situation in which we could perform. Inside the occupied buildings, that there were militants of ours. Inside the school, we went into the occupied buildings to present. We did a lot of things because it was necessary, not only for Marielle, but also against Bolsonaro, because it was the same year that there were elections for Bolsonaro. And Witzel, as a governor in Rio de Janeiro, Witzel, and he, as a Nazi, as the name suggests. And we lost. As you know, we lost. Bolsonaro was elected, but also Witzel was elected. And then we got extremely scared, and then we decided to yet again make another step in front. And what was this other step in front? Was to become not only a school, but a hub for the creation of nucleus, of groups inside the territories that were linked to social movements. Taking the example that we started with, in Brazil, we have a lot what we called people's pre-test school. The public schools in Brazil are not so great. In order to enter the university, you need to pass a test. So you have those pre-test schools. When it's a people's pre-test schools, it means that it's a people's movement that is creating this pre-test school. Is it clear what I'm saying? Yeah? We would go into those pre-test schools and we would create inside the pre-test schools ongoing groups of theater of the oppressed. Why we would do that? Because we believe that inside the social movement, when you join a social movement, you don't join for any other reason than for yourself. When you go to a pre-test school, you want to pass and enter into the university. When you go to an occupied building, you want an apartment for yourself. You don't want to change the structure of the livelihood in Brazil. You don't want to change the educational system of Brazil. You want a place for yourself. So you are inside the social movement, but you don't belong to the social movement. And we felt that theater could be a tool in order to bridge this distance between being in a social movement and belonging to the social movement. That could be, a process that would lead people from one place to the other. And we started. And it worked very well, I must say, because those schools are amazing, are a necessity, but at the same time, the program that they give is the program that is decided by the state for that test. They teach it the most critical way ever that they can, but we, from the theater, we don't need to follow the same program. We can do whatever we want based on whatever the groups wanted, not the state. We don't have the same time frame than those schools. You go to the school, you pass 6 months, you try the test once, you try the test twice, you don't succeed, you succeed, but you are going to leave the pre-test school. We do not care about that. You can stay in the theater group for as long as you want. More than 6 months, more than a year, or your life if it's possible. So we have advantage regarding that. And also a last advantage is when you are in a pre-test school, what interests you is to pass the test. When you are in a theater group, what interests you is not passing the test. What interests you is to perform in your territory. So it was a much more direct way to address for the people that were not in the pre-test school. Is it clear? So we had those advantages regarding the pre-test school. Again, the pre-test school are amazing, are a need, but we could bring something better to this. And in 1 year, we were able to create 3 groups inside those pre-test schools. And we're about to start to have, more groups. Social movements were interested in us. There was a certain buzz. But what happened was fucking COVID appeared. And then made it impossible for us to continue to do whatever we were doing. And it was also impossible to remain with the school as previously. Why? Because our people are not people that have a room of their own to do theater in front of a screen. Little brother, older brother, the mother, the father, they don't have very good equipment. They don't have very good internet. And also, they don't think that it's so interesting to do theater in front of a screen, and I completely understand that. So during 2 years, we were on the brink of closing the doors. We were doing trainings by distance. They were working quite well. The last one had more than 300 people that wanted to join in. But it was horror on earth. I think it's boring like shit to do theater through screens. It's not what it's meant to. So we were all almost dying. Then came the vaccine, people got vaccinated, and we were able to go back in the street. In 1 year, we were able to create 10 groups. 10 groups was a lot. Then we decided to become a little bit less, and 8 groups, because we wanted also to have an agitprop group in order to support the lefty candidate that we wanted to. And we are doing a lot of works. When we gather around our people, we are 60 people more or less. We want every time to become bigger, but we want to become bigger slowly and slowly to have a core team that was going to support our growing. And it's working till now, but it's working in a complete different Brazil than previously, than what it was before COVID. People have no more time. All the free time needs to be used in order to work, in order to get some money. No more free time. So the groups that before were 10 people, 12, 15 people for the bigger one of them, now 5, 6, it's more complicated to gather people. Much more complicated to gather people. The social movements are different. Now that Lula is in power, they cannot be so critical, and we are very critical also of Lula. Obviously, we voted for Lula, we made a campaign for Lula, but also we believe that a critique of what Lula is producing right now should be done. And just to close it up, why are we doing what we do? Why are we doing this? We are doing this because we believe that what leads someone to vote to a certain person, to make certain decision, is not supported because of a certain speech or the leaflet that was extremely well conceived and therefore the person is going, or the arguments were really good in a text and therefore I'm going to choose this or I'm going to choose that. We don't believe that. We believe that people vote in a certain manner, act in a certain manner, mostly because of two reasons. First reason would be the environment in general, and how it is, this environment in general. Basically, I'm saying that it's easier to vote for an extremely violent option when your reality is already extremely violent. I have very few people that told me to the face that they voted for Bolsonaro. But one that did so, I know his living conditions. I know that his daughter sleeps in the living room. And why she sleeps in the living room? Because her room of the daughter received already 2 stray bullets. You know what stray bullets are? Stray bullets? Yeah, 2 stray bullets. They didn't aim at there, but it was a stray bullet that ended up in the room. See? And he's not waiting for the third one to kill his daughter. So the daughter is sleeping in the living room, and this is a person that votes for Bolsonaro. The person votes for Bolsonaro, votes for violence, because already his life is loaded with violence. And also the second reason why you vote what you vote, it's because of your circle of sociability, let's put it this way.
Cerchio di socializzazione.
Yeah.
Cerchio di socializzazione.
And by that I mean the following. In Brazil, we have something that is extremely strong. It's almost 35% of the population belongs to what we call evangelical churches. And those evangelical churches they are extremely contradictory, extremely contradictory. On one side, they more than obviously support extreme right political power project. On one side, they are against LGBTQ, they can be extremely racist, even the constituency is mostly black, extremely patriarchal, and so on and so on. On the other side, those churches organize the solidarity as a self-organization process that exists within the territory. If you lose your house due to a flooding, to too many water, it's probably inside your church that you are going to find the person that's going to let you in his house, lend you a mattress for you to sleep. If you are constructing your house, it's within your church that you will find people that are going to help you out to construct the house. They are going to help you find a job. It's the first place where ex-inmates goes as soon as they leave jail, is in those churches. If you find yourself a husband inside the church will be a mediation for the relationship that you have with your husband, protecting you if your husband drinks too much, beats you, at the same time that they are extremely patriarchal, but at the same time they can help you out. The majority of musicians that do plays in orchestras in Brazil, they come from churches, they were playing inside those churches, and the churches support them to become better and better musicians to the point that they arrive inside the main orchestras of Brazil right now. So on one side, they are the self-organized solidarity. On the other side, they promote a horrible political project. But what we are saying is that if we don't go beyond the elections, if we are only waiting for people to vote right, we will never be able to do that. Why? Because we need to be present in the territory, and we need to try to organize the sociability of the people. And by organizing the sociability is also to provide moments, ways in which people are going to relate each other in a different way than society demands them to react to each other. In a non-competitive, in a collaborative, in a place in which the social division of labor is not respected, in a place in which the critical thoughts can be exerted, and so on and so on. And if we don't offer this solidarity, if we don't offer these spaces, it's not good enough to just have wonderful speeches. Lula is the best orator ever. He spent 1.5 years in jail. Lula is the best orator ever. He almost didn't win the last election. Lula is the best orator ever, and we are very much afraid that on the next election he's going to lose. To have a good talk, to only expect people to act as citizens is not enough, and the People's Theatre School is willing to be a water drop in an effort that's going to be much bigger than ours, in order to talk to people in a way to not reduce them as consumer nor as citizen, to find other ways that people will relate to each other. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, questione.
Allora, siccome abbiamo i potenti mezzi dell'università, a proposito di mezzi di produzione, vi chiedo di usare il microfono se avete delle domande e degli interventi, così tratteniamo e registriamo gli interventi, perché sono utili anche per noi, appunto anche Ilaria che sta lavorando su questo per la sua ricerca di dottorato, quindi vi chiediamo di fare uno sforzo per vincere anche la timidezza, no? Di parlare al microfono. E poi vi ricordo ancora una volta, scusate questa cosa barbosa ma necessaria per l'intervento, poi di fermarvi qui a firmarmi la liberatoria e a compilarla, perché appunto se non volete lo dite, ma se ci date il consenso utilizziamo questi materiali anche per la diffusione. E per chi non è potuto essere qui, tante persone ci hanno chiesto di poter usufruire della registrazione, quindi credo possa essere interessante anche per chi appunto non è qui con noi. Io faccio anche da valletto, quindi porto il microfono. Chi vuole iniziare?
Good morning. I'm Giacomo. I'm a colleague of Ilaria at the first year in this PhD project, and I'm not very familiar with the theater of the oppressed. Actually, with the work of Ilaria, it's the very first time I've heard about it. And my question was about two elements that you were talking about in your presentation. The first is the some plays of the theater of the oppressed that does the work of the enemy. This is the first element. And the second was on the last plays you talked about, the stretch of the hero, the stretching of the hero's form in some plays that you saw. So those two elements, you think those are all about theater or the world of the theater and the plays and this kind of art, or you can see this kind of structure like a form of activism that does the work of the enemy in other situation outside art itself or theater itself. Maybe I'm not clear, but I saw this kind of situation in digital activism or social media activism. Is kind of activism is kind of a work that does the work of the enemy. You do like you want to do a protest, you want to suggest a problem, but what you are doing in that situation is not actually something that has how do you say that has an impact. An effective impact on the social situation as they were defined in the past. So, sì, la mia domanda era se quello di cui parlava Boal a proposito di teatro dell'Oppresso, che in alcune sue rappresentazioni fa il lavoro del nemico, cioè la sua intenzione è buona, la sua intenzione è giusta, è quella di mettere in scena una serie di situazioni problematiche, però quello che succede poi è che vengono performate in maniera errata o comunque non hanno un effettivo, non c'è un risultato effettivo nella socialità. Non c'è una vera messa in discussione. E quindi questo fenomeno qua in particolare io lo rivedo in altre forme di protesta, come per esempio le contraddizioni nel mondo del digitale, che poi è quello che studio io, dove ci sono delle performance di fatto, delle forme di protesta simili, delle messe in discussione simili a quelle che potrebbero essere quelle di cui parlava Boal, ma che effettivamente non hanno poi un riscontro nel reale. Esatto, e anche in questo caso fanno il gioco del nemico. I'm not sure if I was clear. If you want me to repeat a little bit, I can. No. Ok.
Grazie.
The second question is gioco del nemico. L'altra question was about
The stretching of the yours.
yeah. And what do you want to know about it?
My question, I summarized it, was this form of I don't know if protest is the right word, but this kind of protest that you, not protest, sì, cioè il mettere lo struggle nel teatro, nell'arte, cioè questa forma d'arte, esatto, is something that you see outside the world of the theater, or it's just about theater?
Yeah, I think it's better. This question is quite...
Yeah, it's quite complicated. So making the game of the enemy, and the second one being the hero. Yes, I see them in much larger sense than in Theatre of the Oppressed. I was thinking of many examples like in the activist world. I don't know if you know it, but Silvia Federici, an Italian author, conoscete? Teoria della riproduzione sociale, Caliban and la strega, Caliban y la strega. She's very famous in Brazil, very, very famous. And there is things that are really good in what she says. But the political line of getting paid because of the domestic work, it's terrible. It's terrible for me. First, because it doesn't change the balance of who's doing what. It would be still the woman doing the domestic work, but now they're paid. But then also, I believe it's terrible, because it's also an extension of the domain of the commodity. Everything becomes a commodity. Everything is commodified. And so therefore, it doesn't unbalance the gender roles, but the strategy proposed that everything becomes a market. And I think the two things are terrible. So on one side, the historical perspective that she gives about the the primitive expropriation and those kind of things are amazing, but those political lines, as I see it, they are the work of the enemy. They are the work of the enemy. And they are very popular, and I think it's terrible. At a certain point, they wanted to give a price to the mother's milk. And even the mother's milk is going to become a commodity, for fuck's sake. You know, it's the expansion of capitalism to every single sphere that it till now didn't touch. So that would be, for me, an example of the work of the enemy. But there is many others. Stop mumbling. There is many others. One of them was in Brazil, 2014. The riots that happened in Brazil were amazing, were fantastic. But at the same time, it became the stage for the extreme right to come back. They came back. The state is touchable. Amazing. We can touch the state. We can bring the state down. Fantastic. But that became the motto of the extreme right now, that we can touch, that we can bring it down. So it made unwillingly, and there is much more than that, but part of it made in such a way that it was a moment in which showing the state as vulnerable, the extreme right enter into that. Not that we don't have to show the state as vulnerable. And also within the movement there was a lot of divisions. Within the left movement there was a lot of divisions. And some of them were making the work of the enemy. The second question about the heroism. Yes, you can see that all over. You can see that all over. I don't know how many blockbusters right now are blockbusters that support the idea of the superhero, right? The Marvel movies, all of them are supporting this. But also we have this tendency to erasization every time, because it goes very well with the main subjectivity of our time, that is neoliberalism, in the way that it makes each and every one having to behave as a small enterprise in competition with all the others. That would be the main subjectivity of now, is that I consider myself as a small enterprise that needs to do better, that needs to do better than the others all the time. And it goes to very common things, Now, in France, it's been years that you have relooking classes inside the agency in order for the unemployed. No? So it's women that are going to learn how to make up, learn how to dress up in order to pass the job interview, to be the better version of yourself in order to pass that. And what do those things teach us? First is that you are not beautiful enough to get a job, and it's terrible. And the other one is that you need to be more beautiful than the others in order to get a job. The two things are terrible. And it's a heroization also. I do it. What is the Nike motto? Just do it, right? And we have incorporated this Nike motto in the way that, we think that we need always to be better than ourselves, be better. There was another company slogan that was "Be better than yesterday." We need to constantly improve ourselves to be able to stay in the job market. And so yes, it's something that we see all over. It's not, most of the time, I think that, movies. Why, I'm 50. In a month I'm going to be 50. When I was 20 or something, there was not so many zombies movies as before. It's something that there was zombie movies, but they were not mainstream. They were not as famous. Why there is so many zombie movies? Because zombie movies tells you that that life is absolutely uncertain. That something happened with life that we don't know exactly what it is. What we know of life is that life is extreme violence. In this extreme violence, you have very few people that you can count on, and some of them are going to turn on you and will want also to kill you. In this horrible life, to get a sense of what can we do in 5, 10, 15 years, it's impossible. You have to live day by day. Those 4 things that I've just enumerated are not an invention of Hollywood. This is the life of most people on Earth right now. What I'm saying is that it's not Hollywood that teach us to be zombies. It's us that have these zombies' lives that needs to go to see these movies in order to get softened a little bit. It's okay. Life is like this. Life is like this. And forum theater, I think that forum theater teach you what's forum theater, most of forum theater are teaching you right now is how to adapt in a constant evolving job market. That's what forum theater is telling you. Because the job market is constantly evolving. And even this need to a heroism, there is a sentence of Brecht in one of his plays in which the character says, what kind of world are we in which in order to have a lunch, we needed to have the cruelty of someone, of a Latin American discoverer, you know, of a founder of an empire in Latin America. So you see that the heroism of today is this thing that is extremely socialized, in which we need to display a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, a lot of talent, just to be able to get a lunch. Just to be able to get a lunch. So somehow there was a lunch, just to get some food. There was a socialization of heroism right now. And I think that we needed to think what kind of theater, what kind of actions we need to have in order to counter this culture of heroism that is well spread out.
Can I say the socialization of heroism and individualization of the guiltiness of the, you know, because if you failed in this kind of battle, the responsibility it's about up to you, not about to the system. Can we say that?
No, exactly, because somehow we are doing, not only in Theatre of the Press, but also in Theatre of the Press, we are realizing Margaret Thatcher's motto. There is not such a thing as a society, there is only individuals. And therefore, we need to be better. We were commenting on that yesterday, that we live in a very strange period of time in which it's very clear for the majority of the people that went into university, people that are lefty, that racism is a structure. Everybody is going to tell you, yeah, racism is a structure. Patriarchy is a structure, and so on and so on. But the level of individualization that we have, as soon as someone misgender someone else, as soon as someone says something that is not the right thing to say, we individualize it and we say as the person is personally guilty for all the racism that she displays, all the sexism that she displays. It's a very bizarre situation in which we are.
Io estremizzo la provocazione portandola al nostro mondo accademico, no? Voi siete dentro un dottorato, io sono un docente dentro l'università, come questi processi influenzano il nostro modo di vedere i nostri percorsi dentro l'accademia, puntini di sospensione, però riflettiamoci, almeno io ci rifletto su questo, che mi sembra interessante. Qualcuno voleva fare?
Sì, I would like to ask you a thing that I've already asked you about.
So obviously my answer was not good enough. Let's try it
you
another
are ready
time.
about that. No, but I think it could be interesting for everybody here. So I'm referring about the role, about heroism, okay, and leaderism. What about the role of Coringa inside the theater of the oppressed? And maybe now I can switch to Italian and maybe, cioè la mia domanda è, siccome lui parla tantissimo di liderismo ed eroismo, cosa succede alla figura del Coringa in un contesto sociale del genere? Il Coringa all'interno del teatro dell'Oppresso è la persona che facilita i lavoratori di teatro e che effettivamente è una persona che diventa un punto di riferimento molto importante all'interno dei gruppi. Quindi questo secondo me, this for me could be interesting for everybody to...
Yeah. So the Joker, Coringa, is, for those that don't know Theatre of the Press, so is the person that is the middle person, right? The in between the audience and the stage. What about the Joker? I don't know. Many people think that we need to be extremely careful with the Jokering because the Joker can be manipulative and so on. And he needs to express a complete neutrality in front of what comes from the audience. I'm not one of those persons. I'm really not one of those persons that believe that. When I do something, I have a political goal, I'm not hiding it, and I try to find allies in the group. Actually, again, it's very rare that the Escola for Teatro Popolare, we don't perform for audience that we don't know. We perform for audience that we do know because we want to establish relationship with those audience. And we want to establish relationship with those audience regarding a certain political belief that we have, with certain, and we wanted to see if there is a allyship that can be constructed. There's a sentence by Jean-Luc Godard, the person that you look like when you put your sunglasses. We think, Jean-Luc Godard says, if neutrality is to give 50% of the time in a documentary movie to the Jews and 50% of the time to the Nazis, then I am against neutrality. You cannot be neutral because your audience is not going to be disturbed by your presence. Your audience is already divided by a lot of contradiction. There will be men and women, there will be straight people, there will be LGBTQ, TTMI plus people in the audience. There's going to be people that are teachers, people that are students. There are going to be so many contradictions in there. And you need to make a stand from time to time. How to make it, obviously don't be blunt and say you're stupid, you don't have to talk, obviously. But at the same time, it's not true that you're going to be equally receiving every proposition, or even that you should be equally receiving every proposition. Oh, so you are anti-Semitic, oh, so you're a Jew, let's talk, how delicious. So you are gay, so you are against gay, let's talk, how delicious. And yes, it's hold a power position, of holding, and so what? What's the problem with that? There's not going to be a way to have it completely powerless, completely horizontal. There is not such a thing. So the best way is to be blunt about it and say it and open the opportunity for the others to criticize you. Follow up.
On the question that I gave, because I was reading, how do you deal with your belief? Because not all the contexts can be activism. There are contexts where we have to ensure democracy and critical thinking, and I find myself sometimes in doubting, do I have to share I'm anarchist? No, do I have to say this is the work I will bring, thinking about anti-capitalism, thinking about anti-patriarchy? And there is a limit where the question is, there is a limit about it. Because one thing is to do theater in an occupied building. Mm-hmm. One thing is I'm working in Erasmus Plus, mobility for youth workers. Mm-hmm. I'm working with professionals, and I want you to be aware that power relation is affecting your work. And this power relation comes from a system of value that has been given to you when you were born. So where it comes, the limit between I discovered something and you have to discover something.
Look, again, I don't believe that this perfect neutrality is achievable. So put the cards on the table. And again, and also, I don't discuss all the subjects with all the people. Look, for instance, we are going to make a play about, homophobia. We make a play about homophobia, a play about people getting evicted from their houses, and we perform that in front of a movement that's about that. And then there is a link that is created, and let's see if another link can get created, and another, and another. I don't come to every performance, and then I speak for 3 hours before we start the performance about my political beliefs, because, when I read Marx, I believe this, and I don't do that. And I say, okay, there's a problem that all of us can agree that there is a problem, or not all of us, most of us. Because there is not going to be any problem that most of us, in any circumstance, are going to think that is the same. And you need to take a stand. Look, let me tell you, once I was in Kyrgyzstan, and I was making a workshop over there. And there was several workshops happening at the same time. And there was an old woman workshop. And it was not only women, all of them were teenagers. And all of them were so afraid of something that's called the bride napping. Bride napping. It's to kidnap the bride. Obviously, the bride is not the bride before the kidnapping. Ah, sì. Pero no es una esposa previo. No. Es porque es kidnapped that she turns into the wife. So basically, you walk into the street, you are a teenager, a girl teenager, a van opens by your side, 4 men gets out of it, put you inside the van, they leave, they're going to present you to your father-in-law, mother-in-law. Okay, you are going to marry your husband that night. Your husband is going to rape you. And the next day, when you are going to the house of your parents are going to say, sorry, you are already married, you are no longer a virgin, now you belong to that family and no longer to this family. They were terrified of this happening to them, terrified, understandably so. And they made a performance about that. As soon as they end up the performance, there's another woman that goes from another group and goes in front of the stage. She doesn't look at them. She addresses us in Kyrgyz, and then I have a translation, saying, this might be bad, but these are our traditions. I've been married like this. I've been married like this. And now I have 2 kids, and they are beautiful. I saw my husband. I thought that he was beautiful. We decided to marry, and now we have 2 kids. The next day, we are going to present the same place for a school with 400 kids. Are you going to let that woman go in front of 400 kids and saying, as long as you're beautiful, bride napping is okay, you can survive bride napping, or you're going to do something about it? And on last stand, I was not going to allow that woman to say that in front of 400 kids. I have a responsibility. Let's not pretend that there's a neutrality and that each opinion is equally valid. Each opinion is equally valid. What does it mean? Is that opinions, some of them are stained with blood. You open a free space for speech, you are going to hear those stained with blood opinions. You can be another place in which the dominant speech is going to be repeated, and repeated, and you're going to say, thanks a lot. To do politics is not only to open space for free speech. To do politics is to stand for certain values against others. And Forum Theatre is one of those spaces. How do you do it? Obviously, you need to be as gentle as possible, as smart as possible. There's tricks for doing it. But on last resource, don't accept to have this woman saying in front of 400 kids that bride napping is okay. I will try my best in my life not to be responsible for sustaining opinions that validate rape, for instance. No,
Okay, thank you. I'm Stefania from Turin. I wanted to ask you 2 short things. One about the Coringa role, and I wanted to ask you if at the moment it's not maybe consigliato allowed, suggested that the position, the Coringa role can reveal at the beginning his position in the level of the privilege. I mean, in this time, in intersectional fields in particular, we use this word that already Bell Hooks used 30 years ago, so it comes from her, but we reuse this term, and it's important, I think, that when people are on the stage, well, it's my opinion, should start revealing his or her, them, position in the scala of the privilege. What do you think about that? So what do you think about that? And then about the Forum Theatre, I wanted to ask you, well, you told that it's better to do Forum Theatre to people or with people, for people that you do know, because the struggles, the problems that you show are also for the people. But to me, well, I also know this in theater, but at the moment I want to raggiungere, I want to join people that I don't really know. And so, and because it's not, these are not my problems, but I want to join people that I don't know. So, how can do with this?
When I was saying people, I was talking about organizations. I'm not talking about the specific individual in the room. I'm talking about the organization, the work the organization is doing. A pre-test school that I think that is amazing. Collective kitchen that is doing a circle for women that are pregnant and stuff like this. But I don't know each of those women that are pregnant. I don't know them. I know the organization that is sustaining. So I go with them and I try to build up an alliance with the organization. And then the people come together, obviously. But it's about organization. It's not about the individuals that compose the room. Revealing the scale of privilege. I don't know about that. I don't know. Actually, I don't know about privilege. I'm not a fan about the idea of privilege, I may say. Obviously that I do consider that I'm white, that I'm cis, that I'm this and that and that. But at the same time, I think that this way of thinking is extremely individualist. Also, this way of thinking believes that there is a rival point that already exists in society, and I don't think so. I can develop that thing further on. And I think that even the legitimacy that is given by the, how to say that? Lugar de fala, we call it a lugar de fala in Brazil. I am a woman, I am a black person, I am a trans, and therefore I have the legitimacy to speak because I'm a woman, because I'm a black person, because I'm a trans. I think it's very bizarre also, because it's a short-legged legitimacy. Because you are a woman, you have the right to talk about women's issue, but not about the others. Because you are trans, you have the right to talk about trans issues, but not about the others. Because you are black, you can talk about black issues, but not about the others. And I think it's very bizarre to restrain the legitimacy of someone to speak about other issues. I'm telling you how it works in Brazil. Esse lugar de fala, the space.
Il luogo della parola, forse possiamo tradurre. Lugar di fala.
The space from where we speak. And and I think that that is bizarre because again, it's a short-legged legitimacy. You can only speak about this very specific thing, but not about all the rest. And there, who talks about, I don't know, the impersonal domination of capital? Nobody, because it doesn't personally touch no one, although everybody is submitted to it. Then, what was I saying? The second thing that I was saying, I forgot what was it.
You are talking about an example from Brazil? About
No. The second point was.
One was for theater and people that didn't know, the other is Figlio di Augusto.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know because me as a person. I know that people are. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know why people are so much afraid of that. Because you can do it in a way that is not so pushy, that is not so, this is a reaction, and things like this. Obviously you have a power, but play with it. I don't know. Be open to be criticized as a joker. Show your personal point of view. From time to time, I had to tell people that, no, I completely disagree with you, but if you're saying this, I need to hear, but open, I don't know. I don't know, because also, all those things are techniques at the end of the day. And some techniques can be really well adapted at certain points, but not well adapted at others. So to speak in general of the jokering is also something that is very difficult for me, because you joke completely different regarding the situation in which you are. If you are, I don't know, in a place in which there is a very diverse audience, in which you know that there's a group of people that are going to be, that have power over the rest of the people, it's completely different than when you think that more or less the people have the same kind of relationship to them that is not embedded by power. So I don't want to give a specific rule for something that is specific to the space in which you are. As Rosa Luxemburg said, to transform tactics into dogma is the best way to arrive to dictatorships. And as I would say, to transform theater techniques into dogmas is the best way to arrive at something that is pointless. So it's very much related to the space that you are in. But again, I don't feel that I'm so, yeah, maybe I'm not being able to see it, but I don't see that I exert so much power, because again, for me, what's more important is the rehearsal, is the creation of the play than the performance. It's more about doing theater than about showing theater.
Ok, sono quasi giunta l'ora, quindi io direi che se non ci sono altre domande, velocissima perché dobbiamo chiudere.
No, I don't want. No, I cannot. I think. And what the second question about reaching out someone who is we don't know. I can't. I support this, no, because the biggest impact I believe of social action is when we reach who is not in our bubble, and that's why also I was connected to that. What I asked when I'm bringing my belief in the groups. And moving forward, the question is: do you said what is different? What would you do different you do a forum theater in an occupied building, and another forum theater you do it in a school class. And so it's different environment. What would you change in your approach and what you bring and how you think the flow of activities?
No, okay, let me be clear, or try to be clear. I don't believe in theater, I believe very little in theater as an experience to be shown and much more as to be experienced. Why is it so? Because people that believe that theater should be something that is seen, that political theater is something that you look at, that you need to be a spectator of that, an audience of that, they tend to believe, not all of them, that they tend to believe in the following division inside the room. There is the stage that do know, and there is the audience that do not know. And so we are going to show their theater in order for them to learn, which is two mistakes, according to me. One, it would be a moral mistake, not a moral mistake, but yeah, somehow. You believe that the other knows less than you. And I think it's a very bad starting point. The other starting point that I think that is bad is that knowledge equals will to change. And it doesn't. Knowledge does not equals will to change. Why? Okay, if I asked in the room, do you believe that in 15, 20, 30 years there's going to be an ecological collapsus, an ecological catastrophe? I guess that most of you would answer back, yes, I believe that there's going to be an ecological catastrophe, and maybe in even less time than 10 years, maybe 5 years. And then if I ask you, and I'm in the same case scenario, so I'm not being judgy, how many of you are actually doing something to avoid this ecological catastrophe? Most of us will say, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not into that. So the question of showing theater, displaying theater, might not be as transformative as one might expect it. I don't know if you know about that, but Brecht, the politicized plays of Brecht, the one that he thought that were more political, were not plays that were created to be performed. They were plays that were created to be experienced and then discussed. What do you felt when you were performing this? One of his most famous plays from this moment is a play in which 4 activists kills another one. And they are in front of the party trying to explain and to justify why they killed the 5th activist. And it's a very short play in which you had to experience all the roles. You had to experience being the party, you had to experience being the activist that killed, you had to experience being the activist that killed, and then there was a discussion about this. So it was much more about experiencing the play than actually perform for an audience. And what we try to do is an ongoing work with the people that are in certain organizations. So for us, what is most important is the workshop than the performance, is the rehearsal than the performance. So actually, for me, it's important to know most of the names of the people that are inside of my organization. I do know their names, of most of them. They are on my phone, and they can call me whenever. So this is more important. This relationship with the people is more important than just coming to a place, showing something, and then leaving. Let's make a play about homophobia. And we make a play about homophobia in a school. Then we open up a space. Then a kid comes up and says, yes, it's true. There's a lot of homophobia in the school because of this and this and that. And then you close the space and you leave the kid to the very same structure that created the anguish that he needed to share on stage. You just ventilated the heart of that kid. You didn't change the reality of that kid. And what I'm interested to is not to have an audience, is into having allies, is into having comrades. There are people that I will know better and better because they will going to stay longer and longer in the organization, and we are going to create something together. I'm not creating for, I'm creating with. This is different. And so that is maybe why the role of the joker or the plays that we perform, I understand in a slightly different manner, because I'm interested in building an organization. Last time that we met, all the school, we were 60. If we were 60 when all of us met, it means very likely that we are 80, 90, maybe 100, because obviously when we make a meeting, there's always someone that is ill, someone that have to do something with the family, a third one that needs to work, and so on and so on. So if we were 60 in that room, it means that we are 80, 90, 100. That's what I want to build. I want to have the best performance ever. I want to have the best performance ever. But what is most important to me is to be able to create a people's movement. You understand?
Ok, bene, allora grazie Julian per questo seminario e grazie a voi, l'orario è proprio quello giusto, quindi dobbiamo lasciare l'aula e a presto che ci sarà nel pomeriggio o appunto come diceva lui adesso ad altre occasioni, perché l'obiettivo è la moltiplicazione e non la consolatoria chiusura del seminario. Buon pranzo.